So it's 1 o'clock. Let's start. Ladies and gentlemen. Too many ladies. Like a developer conference, really. So, hi. We are Romain Dunant and Fabrice Nordmann. We work at One More Thing. And this is a so-called vendor session, although we'll try not to make it too commercial, but we have to talk about our hosting service, which is fmcloud.fm. And the reason why we have to mention it is because we are the only ones to do hosting on Docker architecture, right? But apart from that, I mean, of course, we will mention our own service, but the purpose is to explain the different possibilities that you have nowadays to host FileMaker files, FileMaker or Claris files now, by the way. I will do the introduction, and then the genius behind fmcloud.fm, who is Romain, is going to go into the detail of the Docker architecture and all that. So, what are the possibilities to host a FileMaker file nowadays? First of all, you have to keep in mind that this is a very important topic. I mean, the server has become absolutely central in our platform. Before it was just a client-server thing. You know, you were just using your own Pro, and the server was just basically just making database available and doing some other stuff like backups and so on. Now it's able to do so many things like running script, interacting with APIs and so on. So where you put your server has become it is very important. And if you haven't considered this for a long time, it's really time to do so, because it really makes a difference on how you live with the platform, really. So we have two big categories of hosting files. First is on-premise, and second is on the cloud. On-premise, you have three versions of FileMaker Server. As you know, you have the macOS version, the Windows version, and the Linux version. You can install on-premise, means you really install it in your premises, right? One of the advantages is that you keep your data at home. Sometimes that people feel more secure by that, right? That their data is within their wall. And of course, you have a very good performance on the LAN, and that there are still situations where this is really makes a difference. If you have number of users, if you're in the middle of nowhere and you have no decent internet connection, there are real situations in which this is a key point. So cloud is not for every situation. The pros are, yes, you cannot beat performance in terms of latency from one network, right? From a LAN network. But, well, then it becomes a disadvantage if you have users that have to connect from the home or from other places, and this has become like the generic use case, right? It's very rare that we are in situations where only local users are using the platform. Your data are safe at home. Well, really safe? Are you really sure that you made every effort to secure this data? I often remind people that the number one cause of data loss in small and middle companies scale is robbery and burglary. Right? This is number one cause. The disadvantages are you need to have a little bit knowledge about the network and routers and so on. Your data is actually not safe, as we just mentioned. There are other types of risk. There are other types of risk on an on-premise server. It can be linked to the hardware. It can be linked to any event, like mentioned. What if your IT is on the leave? And of course, you need a good internet connection if you have remote users connecting, as stated before. Okay, no internet, no job for remote workers, and I'm sure you'll agree that the same disadvantage will happen with the cloud, right? No internet is not good news nowadays. So, does it have lower prices? It depends, right? The price of an on-premise server is not null. You have the machine to buy, you have the maintenance to do, you have the electricity bill, and so on and so forth. You control everything. This is also an advantage, and well, and you still require. I don't know. This is a double slide, right? Or yeah, it was I think an error in our slide, right? Sorry. The cloud hosting. The pros, it's secure. I mean, in general, cloud people are they know what they're doing, right? So if you call a data center or a service provider, we can assume that most of them, at least, they know what they're doing, right? It's secured. You get some support, so you don't have to know the details of FileMaker server and so on. They do it for you. They have expertise. The service is always available. The uptime is usually excellent. And you have extra services. I mean, the hosting companies, they are used to deal with SSL certificates, backup options, and so on. So, DNS and all that stuff that you don't master because you don't do that every day. Again, cloud hosting, if you have no internet, it's time to read. And then, where are your data? This you don't always know. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. With FileMaker, and usually you do know. SLA, what is the reaction time if I have a problem? Is there a good support there? And this is a very important issue when you choose a provider. And what are now we are focusing on the cloud hosting options, right? We don't get back to the on-premise. What are the different options in the cloud hosting? First, you had the shared hosting. Well, and second, you have the dedicated physical server. Right? You rent a server in a data center. Then, more common is virtual machine. Then you have FileMaker Cloud provided by Claris, which is in fact a virtual machine. And then we have our thing, which is containerized, so it means Docker. And now we're going to see the different pros and cons of each options. So shared hosting. Well, first, it's not allowed anymore by Claris. So this is a short one. There is still a situation where, if you're SBA partners, you are still allowed to do shared hosting. But actually, even if you are able to do it, it's not a good idea. You have better options now. I mean, the cost is not really an issue anymore. The dedicated physical server. The pros is, well, you can choose the operating system. You can find a I don't know, provider that provides Mac OS or Windows or Linux. You have very good performance, better than shared. And the full resources of your machine is completely dedicated to you, right? So if there are physically, I don't know, 32 gig of RAM installed on that physical machine, you can use them, right? It's very expensive. It's very expensive to rent a physical server in a data center. It's not scalable. What if you have 16 gig of RAM and you need more? Well, you need to purchase more, right? And you need different hardware. The update downtime, you have many operations that will cause a rather long downtime, to upgrade the system and so on, hardware or software. The RPM may be slower. So if you have an incident of course it's limited to your host capacity. Again, the next option, which is very, very common. Almost all providers now, what they propose is this virtual machine, right? So there are pros and cons. By the way, we do too. So it's still a good solution, right? But it's scalable, right? If you need more RAM, well, you can just turn the amount of RAM dedicated to that virtual machine, and you get it. It's cost effective for small teams. The performance is not ideal, right? You're on a virtual machine, the host is hosting several virtual machines, and you do not control completely the amount of resources that you have and that are available physically, and also you don't know how many machines are installed on that. And of course there is a virtualization layer that is also taking a lot of resources. So you still have the update downtime. If you need to update your FileMaker server, you still need to stop it, run the updater, relaunch it. Virtual machines are expensive for large configurations, right? Then comes FileMaker Cloud, just when Brad is entering the room. We didn't rehearse anything, it was just fantastic. So pros is the pricing FileMaker Cloud has for small DBUs, the Essentials program is very good, very efficient. Performance is great. Now they have deployed all around the world on AWS facilities. It's great. So you have it worldwide, and there's a cloud-first approach. So some features are delivered on the cloud before they are delivered on the on-premise version. The cons, well, the SLA is so. I mean, you don't have the top level of expertise. As soon as you have a problem, it's just not like picking up a phone and getting a straight answer immediately from a top level expert, let's say. There's a daily maintenance, or I don't know if it's still daily, but there are some downtimes during the night. It can be disabled, because before the servers were restarted nightly, not daily. But the pricing on large teams is big, let's say, and you don't have XML or PHP on Linux, because it runs on the Linux version, right? And there is no convenient way to upload or download a database, right? So you always have to go through the FileMaker Pro uploader, and although this is convenient if you have small files, it becomes a problem when you have bigger ones with a lot of containers and so on. And then we come to the containerized option, and as I said earlier, I will leave the mic to our brain, behind FM Cloud.
Okay, thank you, Fabrice. So, do you know what is a container? Do you use Docker? Okay, many of you? Okay. So, just to explain to everyone, a container at the low level is just a set of process. It's a process that runs inside an isolated environment in your OS. So it's like just running a program that is on your physical machine or your virtual machine, and it's just running beside all other process. It's not like a virtual machine which runs a new OS and is totally different than the host. You can have, for instance, a host which is a Linux and run a virtual machine running Windows. Here you will always, Docker is only for Linux. So when you run something, it has to be a Linux system. So as I said, it's totally different than a virtual machine. There's no guest OS. It's using the host Linux kernel which is shared to run everything he has to access the network and things like that. It's Linux only. You can run it inside a virtual machine, because if you run a virtual server in Linux, you will be able to install Docker and run container inside that virtual host. And so it's in isolated environments, so which is called user spaces. That means that when the process is running, it can be stored somewhere on the computer, but he will think he's in a totally new place. He will see the root level will be the root of the process. It won't have access to the root level of the host which is running the process. So you can use all the things that Linux provides to link spaces to the container, and it will give it access to your process without exposing the whole host. And of course, unlike virtual machines, you can run a container inside another container. I mean, you run a process which is also containerized, and you can have multiple levels of containers running. So that's interesting when you do some continuous deployment, for instance. And there's no graphical UI. Everything is on the terminal. So just to compare between virtual machines. So in virtual machine, you have a hardware level process isolation. So it's totally isolated from everything on the host, but it has to create its own system to run. You have a full separate OS. So if you have, for instance, a Windows VM, well, you have the 30 gigabytes of Windows installed each time you have a VM running on your host. So it can use a lot of space for nothing, because it's always the same files. It takes a long time to boot. Of course, you have to boot the full system when you start it. It's pretty heavy because of the system. And creating a VM, booting a VM, it's really long task. So when you have an issue and you want to restart it, you will have to wait a few minutes, sometimes more, if you have a Windows updates running, for instance. And of course, it uses more resources from the host, because it has to run many sub-process from the OS that will consume the resource that you would be available for other usage. So on the other hand, the containers are OS level process isolation. So they don't need to start many other process to be able to run properly. Each container can share the OS. If you have, for instance, Docker is like file system with multiple layers. So when you have, for instance, images that are using the same base to run, this base will be shared among all the containers that use it. So, for instance, we use Ubuntu for Ubuntu 18 for the FileMaker images. This images is shared among all FileMaker server images. So that means that if you have 5 FileMaker server version images, the Ubuntu part will only come for once for any containers that you will have deployed. It boots in seconds. I mean, there's no boot actually. You just start a process. That's just it. Start a process with an isolated environment. So the boot time is just the load time of your executable. So it can be Apache or Nginx, for instance. It's just you start the process. It's here. But that means also that when you stop the process, it's just the same. There's no shutdown. You just stop the process. So containers are really lightweight. Depending, of course, of what's in your images. FileMaker is quite heavy, so it's like 1.4 gigabytes. But if you have, for instance, Apache, Nginx, PHP, or things like that, it's just few megabytes. So it's really, really light. And as I said, it can be created in seconds. When you want to create a container, it's just single configuration, run the process, and you're done. So, of course, because of all this, it uses very less resources, which are used for your process to run, for your app. So here is a small graph showing the architecture difference between virtual machine and containers. So on a virtual machine, you have your server hardware, you have the host operating system, the hypervisor, which is the process responsible from isolating every virtual machine. Then you have your guest OS and the libraries that you have installed, so all your program you have installed in your guest OS to run your app. Okay. And what?
The app is FileMaker Server.
And the app is FileMaker Server or any other thing. And so if you have three apps running here, you will have each time the OS that will consume the resource of your server. I think, okay. Well, I have the small. So for instance, if you have two FileMaker 19.5 running and one 19.4 running, you will always have the guest OS, you will always have FileMaker's libraries installed on your server. Everything here is gigabytes. Like, well, let's say on Windows, we'll have 40 gigabytes, 40 gigabytes, 40 gigabytes. In Docker, it's pretty lighter because you have your server hardware, the host OS, okay? But then you have just a Docker controller that will just spawn your containers using images to spawn your containers and just create the isolation. So here, you don't have the guest OS. Your libraries, if you have two containers running the same version of FileMaker, they will become for one only. So here I have the 19.5, just one time. Here you have another one for the 19.4. So it's really lighter. And then you have your container running, your app running here. Is it okay for you? So why does it change things? I think you guess that because of all the resources you release by not using virtual machine, you have the image that are shared across among all containers, one FileMaker installation, and multiple server running. There's no more update process because now we don't use in a virtual machine. You run it, you install FileMaker, and then if you want to update it, you have to run the installer to uninstall the first one and install the new version. With Docker, you don't have this. You just say, okay, now I will be using the new images. So we install on a new image, the FileMaker server. We just keep the configuration file, and we say, okay, stop the process, use this new image, run. And it takes 5 seconds. In 5 seconds, you have a new FileMaker server updated. Better performance because there's no overhead due to CPU cycles and IOPs from the virtualization, and so it's a really new way of deploying FileMaker. And because of this, you have reduced costs because you don't need as much resource as before. So this is how is working our platform or hosting system with FM Cloud. I will just show you quickly, and you can ask us at the booth to see here it more precisely. But this is how we are working. We have a system which is infrastructure as a platform. So, which means that we create configuration file, we push them in a Git repository. We have a small robot, a runner, which reads the configuration and say, okay, you need a new server on this data center, this host, and then it spins the server. Well, it's one minute the process takes. And then we automated everything, so we also have all the monitoring system which are connected. That allows us to control if everything is working well on the server, to aggregate all the logs of all the server running among all our hosts. So we can, if someone calls us, we can just say, okay, you have an issue. We can see the logs of the server. We can see everything that is happening on this server. And of course, a monitoring system that through us alerts in case of an issue. I will go quickly on this one. This is the how a host is working. So on a host, you have one server which is running multiple FileMaker instance, a monitoring agent, a backup agent, and then we mount volumes, SSD and backup volumes. And so all those servers here are running inside Docker, sharing the same volumes, so we can back up everyone at the same time. And here is we have a partner offer for in our system, so we can rent you a full host with multiple IP address, and you can run, if you have your customer, you can make them run on your home host and manage everything you need, having access to a dedicated monitoring console. So what we have, you can have access to it also. And also some other tools that we don't give to public cloud, like SSH access to the servers, and an API that allows you to control the deployment of all your servers. Come to see us, and we will explain you how it works more less quickly. So this is, for instance, here our monitoring tool. As you can see, we can see all the disk usage, the process usage for each server, how many users we have connected at the same time on all our hosts, the logs here, all the logs from all the servers, and things like that, the network usage, bundling, etc. And this is something you can have access when you have your own host. Yeah.
So you actually have access to all the logs for all the servers?
Yeah.
Okay.
And all
logs can have secure data in them.
What?
Logs can have secure data that's protected data.
Yeah.
Which is not good. A hosting company should not.
There's no secure data inside.
FileMaker logs can have secure data in it.
What kind?
A script can actually be run by a user in a bad way that actually puts customer data in a log file. I've seen it.
Okay. I see. Yeah.
Like protected medical data, for example.
Yeah. Anyway, all those are encrypted on the server, so we have access to it, of course, because we need to provide support to our customers.
Okay.
And even on the admin console, you can see them as well. But yeah, okay. I understand what you mean. Yeah. What? Okay, Fabrice, you want to do the FM Cloud demo?
We can. Yeah.
I'm going to show you how we can deploy in few.
So we need a server right now.
Oh. Wait, by you. Okay.
Who needs a server? No one in the room. So no demo. You need one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
I need a Claris Pro server.
What?
I need a Claris Pro server in Frankfurt, please.
In Frankfurt. Right. Okay, let's do that. So I just loaded our website. I'm going to ask the chatbot. Okay, I'm here for FileMaker hosting. It does licensing also, by the way, but you have a license already, Matt. Yeah. Okay, so let's just deploy a trial server. Now it's thinking. It's a bot. It thinks slower than us. Your name is Matt.
Do I get a discount for being a guinea pig?
Do you mind telling me your email?
Yeah, it's matt@claris.training.
Just like that?
Just like that.
Wow. Do you consent with all the bullshit above?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, let's select a data center. You said it was Frankfurt, right? So
Yeah,
we
I
have.
don't think there's any closer one to Greece, right? There's one in Italy, but you don't have one there?
No, exactly. You're right.
I'm not sure.
Switzerland.
Switzerland is closer? Okay, Switzerland then.
Slightly closer.
Okay.
And finally, I think you can choose, yes, your subdomain of fmcloud.fm. That would be Clarice training, I guess, no?
Maybe just CT.
CT. And you confirm you don't want to change anything. Let's confirm. And now the team is working. And now the team is working. And do you have your phone on?
By the way, I was just about to set up a server, so I'm glad you're doing this.
Okay, fantastic. So.
Yeah. Can see it's deploying.
Okay.
Did you receive a confirmation email already?
Let me look.
Oh, I should take one.
This is the slow part of the process.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's true.
The only slowdown is me waiting for it. I didn't receive it yet.
Okay, it will arrive. It's a mailbox thing, but the server is deployed already. So you see it's that fast, and it's also that fast when we decide that we will update, say, 1,000 server, let's say in the United States at this time of the night, because we have a new version, and we just click a button, and boom, second after they are all updated, and or they can be also downgraded, by the way, or any option you want. You can.
So one other question. So when a new version of Claris Server comes out, all the data on my drive is separate, and then you just basically spin up another instance of the new version, and it's there without me having to do any upgrade.
So
I think that's pretty unique, right?
So by default, well, we have an upgrade policy. Let's say we are not taking any risk, so we wait until it's really tested and so on. If you really need to be, so you got the email. Do you click the button? Can you confirm that you get to the admin console?
You can go to the address, CT.
Oh yeah, by the way, that's a good idea. So it's ct.fmcloud.fm, and that's it. You have a server running there.
Admin console.
Yeah, you have all. We support all features of FileMaker Server, all of them, plugins, everything, right? And a little more that we added. We don't want to spend to give you the details now. You can come meet us at the booth.
So this is FileMaker Server 19.5.
Yes.
I actually need Claris Server 40.
Well, you can not using the chatbot, but we can deploy it for you, no problem. To be precisely, the deployment of the Claris server at this stage is not as lightning fast for a reason you know, but we do it no problem, and within a few weeks it will be fixed and it will be as
fast.
fast.
Is that a GUI workaround thing, or what is it?
Yeah, but even that Romain found
is a problem, yeah.
Okay.
even that Romain found a workaround, of course, but it's still a little bit slower.
Okay.
So, but we do it not using the chatbot though. That would be implemented soon.
I don't know. I don't want to totally dominate your session. But one other point that I had on all the other different comparisons, I know that some of those don't give you the admin console, which is a pretty big benefit.
We say, well, you have all features that are supported.
But what other hosting methods, obviously internal, your own server, you have it, but do other hosting providers and other ways to do this don't give you the regular admin console?
Sometimes, yeah. I don't think not now because it's most of the times it's not shared anymore. So there's no reason to not give the admin console. I don't know if they are now.
Well, there are reasons, but yeah.
One quirk I noticed with our containerized hosting was if you put a host in as a favorite, and then you put another host in as a favorite that's on the same container, for some reason in FileMaker it seems to cache that possibly the IP address that's resolved. So when you go to the other favorite, it still shows you the files from the first one until you close FileMaker and reopen.
Actually, it's a question of IP ranges that you have on your different hosts, if I understand well your question. But that, okay, we can chat about the detail. Just
I think that was a question.
was there a question?
My question was like if you install the Docker image, so you need another IP address for that Docker container, right?
Each container has its own IP address. Yeah.
So you have to know the IP address that's available, right, for setting it up.
Yes, we have to manage the IP address of the host and say assign.
Yeah.
When we deploy, we assign an IP.
And also about SSL certificates, so it's also could be automated to report this in a FileMaker server.
But by default, you see, we use the fmcloud.fm domain name, but of course, if you have your own certificate, we can install that.
Automatic Let's Encrypt install. So if you want your own DNS, you just have to create the DNS entry that point to the IP address, and then we just restart the container, and it will automatically install the Let's Encrypt certificate.
Yeah, we have a few under the hood features that are very nice, but it wouldn't be suitable to go through all of them right now because I think we already
What about restricting the access by IP address or something like
by sort of VPN or so, or like that. This is
by IP address or something like that.
Yeah, okay. Well, this is a public cloud. We have, of course, the possibility with the partner offer to have a private cloud as well, behind a firewall, VPN, and so on. But this is really how how a public cloud works. Just a few words. Nikolai Body, I don't know if you know him, is one of us. He's spent years and years testing the performances of FileMaker Server in every kind of circumstances where you're doing horseback riding, sailing, every day. He's been using FileMaker Server in all kind of situations. He's been testing our service, and it was at the very beginning, and he said, Docker, that's what he said about Docker after testing our service. It's a game changer, total game changer. He also measured that our service, and he was comparing to our own service on virtual machine on Windows, so we're not comparing to another data center or anything. He said our Docker thing was 3 times faster, and it would support up to 4 times more PSOS script session without chunking, and now it's even more. So it's a really major advance. Yeah, Vincenzo.
How do you deal with data migration? So that, let's say, I want a development server and I want a staging server.
So we do offer if you come as customer to our thing, you pay for the production server, and you have at the very low price an extra development server, and we do have auto. So if you have a license of auto, or very soon to be, that would be our own license, you can use auto on our own servers.
Are there any plugins that cannot be used?
We support all. Of course, the plugins that are compatible are only the ones that run on Linux, and there are not so many, but they are the best ones. So MBS is there, Base Elements is there, and some more. Not all of them, though.
360 works?
No, 360. Well, 360 works as one plugin, I think, compatible with Linux, but honestly, there are, I think. If your question is about Scriptmaster, no, it's not, and it won't be apparently, unfortunately.
Does OBDC run that?
ODBC is available, all features. Unlike FileMaker Cloud, now I can say it now that Brad is again. No, I'm just kidding. But we support all features of FileMaker Server.
What access do you give to the client's backup files?
So the backups are available through SFTP.
And how many are returned?
How many backups do we have?
Well, I mean, if somebody configures 1,000 backups...
No, we do not allow that many. We have already a very careful policy of hourly backups and then dailies and so on. If you have exceptions, we can discuss that.
To a weekly and daily.
Yes, and an important thing also...
We have a daily,
yes,
which is running for 1 week, and the weekly, which is for 4 weeks.
And you can just download that
Yeah.
Yes, you can handle it. Of course, they are moved offsite nightly, and if you look at our plans, the backup storage does not need to be included. So this is a major difference with a virtual machine, because on the virtual machines, if you have a plan with, let's say, 30 gigabytes, well, that would not exist, but with 100 gigabytes, then you've got to take into account the operating system, then your database and containers, and also the backups. On our thing, it's just you count your database plus containers, and that gives you what you need. Any other question? Oh, by the way, we have a special EngageU offer for you, because you're mostly consultant. So, okay, if you bring 3 customers, you get a free developer. You have brought only 2.99 customers already. No, okay, so. No. So, okay. And of course, I mean, we try not to make it too commercial. It's very important that people understand what Docker is about, what's the future about it. I hope, I mean, so please meet us at our booth if you want to know more, and go directly to Romain, because as you understood, he is much more qualified than I am. Thank you.